July 15, 1942, 9,000 feet above the steaming jungles of New Guinea. The early morning sun pierced the misty canopy below in jagged shafts, revealing the emerald rivers and ragged cliffs that cut through the islands like jagged scars. The air was thick, heavy with humidity, and the smell of oil and hot metal clung to every surface of the Allied airstrip. Engines hummed, propellers sliced the humid air, and the scent of aviation fuel mingled with the sweet tang of tropical blooms. Lieutenant Robert Chatham, Bob MacGregor, 24, from Dayton, Ohio, squinted through the cockpit canopy of his Bell P-39 Airacobra, sweat streaking his face under the leather helmet. The nose-mounted 37mm cannon gleamed in the morning light, a weapon he knew few pilots believed in. Japanese intelligence had labeled the P-39 awkward and underpowered, a fighter doomed to fail against nimble Zeros. Yet Bob trusted it more than most. "Remember your drills," he muttered to himself, fingers brushing the throttle. His mind flickered to his mother back in Dayton, still tending her rose garden, and to his younger sister, waiting for letters that might never arrive. In the cockpit, those personal stakes melted into the hum of the engine and the tightening grip of his controls. Behind him, his wingman, Lieutenant James "Jimmy" Reynolds, 22, from Des Moines, Iowa, adjusted his oxygen mask nervously. Jimmy had a reputation for sharp reflexes, but often let adrenaline override caution. He shot a brief glance at Bob. "Think they'll even take us seriously?" he asked, half laughing, half worried. The Airacobra's quirks were infamous among pilots. Its mid-engine layout created a strange center of gravity, making high-speed dives exhilarating but sometimes unpredictable. The tricycle landing gear was sturdy but awkward on takeoff, and its 37mm cannon, while devastating, had a slow rate of fire. A single hit could obliterate an enemy fighter, or a misfire could leave them exposed. Above them, the clouds were thin, a patchwork of white against endless blue. The distant roar of twin-engine bombers hinted at a larger mission, an escort assignment over enemy-held territory. Every pilot knew the stakes. One wrong move, and the jungle below would become a graveyard. Bob's eyes flicked to the horizon. There, small specks growing larger, the silhouettes of Japanese A6M0 fighters, dancing and teasing as they scouted the skies. He gritted his teeth, feeling the familiar surge of adrenaline. Today, they would learn that a P-39's punch was no joke. The briefing had been clear: intercept, protect the bombers, and survive. The Japanese pilots would laugh at the sight of the squat, unconventional fighters climbing awkwardly to meet them. But they had not yet seen a 37mm shell tear through aluminum like a thunderbolt. Bob exhaled slowly. He thumbed the trigger test on the cannon, listening to the mechanical click echo inside the cockpit. "One shot, one kill," whispered. The words weren't bravado. They were preparation. The strip roared to life as the squadron moved into formation. Engines screamed, propellers blurred into silver, and the air seemed to vibrate with tension. This was no ordinary patrol. Somewhere above the vast jungle and island chains, fate waited, and it would demand both skill and courage. As they climbed toward 12,000 feet, the distant hum of enemy aircraft grew clearer. The morning sun glinted off their fuselages, and the wind buffeted the cockpits. Every pilot could feel the invisible line. Cross it wrong, and death could come in a fraction of a second. The P-39 Airacobra, derided and doubted, surged through the sky, its nose cannon ready, a silent predator among the clouds. The Japanese pilots, confident and laughing, had no idea that the first moments of engagement would rewrite their understanding of the fighter below them. The first Zero broke formation, its sleek green fuselage slicing through the sky with terrifying grace. Lieutenant MacGregor's heart thumped in his chest like a drum. He tightened his grip on the control stick, feeling the P-39 respond with a familiar twitch, its mid-engine design giving him a slightly different sensation than the nimble Japanese fighter. "Bob, target at 2 o'clock!" Jimmy's voice crackled over the radio, urgency undercutting his usual nervousness. MacGregor banked sharply, eyes tracking the Zero as it dipped in a shallow dive. The Airacobra's Allison V1710 engine roared in response, the propeller slicing the air into a rhythmic vibration. He considered his options: guns or cannon. The 50 cal machine guns could shred wings, but the 37mm cannon could obliterate the enemy with one well-placed shot. He chose the cannon. One shot, one chance. The Zero twisted and rolled, trying to shake him, but MacGregor anticipated its maneuvers. He lined up the nose, feeling the aircraft's weight shift under him. The target was directly ahead now, exposed. His fingers squeezed the trigger. A thunderous blast erupted. Smoke and fire erupted from the Zero's fuselage, the 37mm shell punching through the engine compartment. The enemy fighter lurched violently, spinning out of control, wings tearing in midair. MacGregor watched, breath caught as the plane fell, a green blur against the brilliant sky. "Did you see that?" Jimmy shouted, incredulous. "One shot, gone!" The squadron's laughter from before turned to tense silence as the other Zeros scrambled to respond. But MacGregor felt a grim satisfaction. The Airacobra's reputation as a lumbering, underpowered fighter was a lie, at least in his hands. The Japanese pilots began a coordinated assault. They descended in tight spirals, high-speed passes, testing the P-39's limits. MacGregor dove sharply, banking hard to evade a burst of enemy machine gun fire. The wind tore at his helmet, the canopy rattling with every gust. He felt the vibration of the engine as it screamed at full throttle. A glance at his ammo counter confirmed he had only 6 37mm shells left, each one precious. Jimmy was under attack, dodging a Zero that nearly clipped his tail. MacGregor swung around, lining up on the aggressor. His first shot missed, ricocheting off the fuselage. The second connected, a direct hit to the wing root. The Japanese plane wobbled violently, losing altitude. Above them, the bombers moved steadily, unaware of the deadly ballet unfolding beneath their wings. MacGregor's focus narrowed to the immediate. Enemy fighters, trajectory, cannon fire, escape paths. Time slowed, each second stretching like a lifetime. A third Zero lunged at him from the sun, claws out, guns blazing. MacGregor twisted the Airacobra into a barrel roll, feeling the G-forces pin him to the seat. The canopy rattled as tracer rounds whizzed past, some grazing the fuselage. He countered with a burst of 50 cal fire, chipping paint and metal off the attacking fighter. Then, the moment of truth. Another 37mm round loaded. He aimed carefully, not just at the plane, but at the critical area beneath the cockpit. One shot could end the engagement. He fired. The impact was catastrophic. The Zero's wing exploded, scattering flaming debris like fireworks across the sky. Below him, the dense jungle waited silently. Up here, the air was thick with smoke, adrenaline, and the metallic tang of spent ammunition. MacGregor's heart raced. The first wave of Japanese pilots had underestimated the Airacobra. And now, the cost of that misjudgment was written in fire and steel. Jimmy's voice came over the radio, exhilarated. "Bob, you're a demon. They're not laughing anymore." MacGregor allowed himself a brief grin, sweat stinging his eyes. The P-39's nose cannon had spoken, and it was a voice the enemy would not soon forget. But there was no time to revel. More Zeros were climbing from below, circling, waiting for mistakes. The battle was far from over. Every maneuver, every shot, every decision now carried the weight of survival and the fate of the bombers above. July 15th, 1942, 13,000 feet above the rugged peaks of New Guinea. The sky had transformed into a chaotic theater of motion. Planes twisting, diving, and weaving like predators in a storm. Smoke trailed from punctured fuselages, and the faint smell of burning metal drifted up to the cockpits of the P-39s. Each pilot knew that one miscalculation could mean a flaming descent into the unforgiving jungle below. Lieutenant MacGregor banked sharply to the left, narrowly avoiding a Zero that had slipped into a head-on attack. The Airacobra groaned under the sudden maneuver, the engine screaming as it fought against gravity and momentum. Bob's palms were slick with sweat, but his eyes never left the enemy. "Bombers are still holding formation," he reminded Jimmy, who was weaving through the chaos, dodging a hail of tracer fire. "Keep them safe. We can handle the rest." The Japanese pilots were masters of agility. Their Zeros darted like bullets, attempting to isolate and overwhelm the P-39s. But MacGregor's aircraft, though less nimble, possessed brute power. Its 37mm cannon was a hammer in a world of scalpels. Each burst from the nose could dismantle an enemy plane in a heartbeat. He lined up on a Zero that was tailing Jimmy, judging the distance, factoring in speed, and anticipating evasive maneuvers. The first round tore through the engine, flames erupting instantly. The plane pitched violently before crashing in a plume of smoke far below. One down. A sudden flash of green passed beneath him, a surprise dive from another Japanese ace. MacGregor yanked the stick into a hard climb, narrowly avoiding a collision. His stomach lurched as the G-forces pressed him into the seat. From this angle, the Zero's wings glinted in the sunlight, revealing every rivet, every detail as if time had slowed. He fired the 37mm cannon again. A single shot tore through the fuselage, wings snapping like twigs under stress. The enemy aircraft spun out of control, a green flame tracing its descent into the jungle below. MacGregor's pulse pounded in his ears. 3 Zeros destroyed, and the others hesitated, fear replacing their earlier laughter. Jimmy's voice came through, breathless and wide-eyed. "Bob, you're tearing them apart." "Just stay alive," MacGregor barked, his eyes scanning for the next threat. Another Zero was closing fast, attempting a high-speed rolling attack. The P-39 shuddered under the combined strain of climbing and firing. The cannon's recoil jarred the fuselage with each shot. He fired 2 rounds, one catching the wing root, the other the tail assembly. The enemy fighter broke apart in midair, its debris scattering like lethal confetti. The squadron moved with a calculated rhythm now. No longer were they just surviving. They were dictating the fight. The P-39, once underestimated, had become a deadly predator in the sky. Its sturdy fuselage absorbed hits that would have shredded lighter fighters. And the nose cannon's destructive power forced even veteran Zeros to reconsider every maneuver. Amid the chaos, MacGregor caught sight of the bombers they were assigned to protect. A formation of B-25 Mitchells moved steadily, unaware of the life-and-death struggle unfolding above. Their mission was critical, and the P-39s had become both shield and sword. A flash of movement to his left drew MacGregor's attention, a Zero attempting a kamikaze-style dive toward the bombers. He throttled up, diving after it. The wind screamed past the cockpit, rattling the canopy and whipping his goggles with sheer velocity. Calculating distance, he fired the cannon. The enemy plane erupted in flames before reaching the bombers, its trajectory suddenly turning into a spiraling inferno. Bob's hands shook slightly as adrenaline coursed through him. He took a deep breath, realizing the extent of what had just happened. The enemy's laughter was gone. The Zeros, once so confident, now gave the Airacobra a wide berth. The legend of the P-39's cannon was being written in fire and twisted metal, and he was living every line. Yet there was no time for reflection. The sky still teemed with danger, and every pilot knew that luck and skill could only carry them so far. The battle raged on, each maneuver a life-or-death gamble, each decision carrying the weight of fate. Not just theirs, but the bombers as well. Smoke and fire streaked across the sky like molten rivers. The dogfight had shifted into a deadly rhythm. Twists, dives, and sharp climbs punctuated by the violent thunder of cannon fire. MacGregor's P-39 shuddered under the repeated stress of evasive maneuvers, each movement bringing the plane closer to its mechanical limits. Yet the Airacobra, sturdy and determined, responded without complaint, a silent partner in this deadly dance. Ahead, a formation of 3 Zeros attempted a coordinated pincer attack on the bombers. MacGregor's instincts screamed, intercept at all costs. He banked hard, the mid-engine layout of the P-39 giving him a slight edge in acceleration despite its less nimble frame. The first Zero barreled toward the bomber's tail. He squeezed the cannon trigger. A deafening blast. The enemy aircraft's wing exploded in a burst of flame, sending the pilot plummeting in a spiraling death spiral. MacGregor barely had time to register the kill before another Zero dived from the sun, guns blazing. His .50 caliber machine guns tore through its fuselage, but it wasn't enough to finish it. The 37mm cannon had only 1 round left. Every decision now felt monumental, every shot a potential lifesaver, or the difference between survival and catastrophe. Jimmy's voice crackled over the radio, almost yelling. "Bob, the last one's coming straight at you." MacGregor's stomach tightened. The Zero's approach was precise, calculated, almost mechanical. His mind raced through every possible maneuver: barrel roll, split S, climb, dive, calculating speed, distance, wind resistance, and cannon trajectory. In a heartbeat, he dove, pulling the Airacobra into a death-defying roll just as the enemy passed overhead. Tracer rounds skimmed the fuselage, the heat from the near misses searing the metal around him. He rolled back onto the Zero's tail, his last 37mm round loaded with a satisfying click. Time slowed. The sun glinted off the enemy plane's wing, reflecting into his eyes. One shot, one chance. He fired. The cannon erupted, a concussive blast that reverberated through the cockpit. The round struck perfectly, through the wing root, tearing the plane apart from the inside. Flames engulfed it instantly, debris scattering across the sky. The pilot had no chance. MacGregor's chest heaved as he watched the Zero plummet toward the dense jungle below, a burning testament to the Airacobra's lethal capability. "Unbelievable," Jimmy muttered, his voice trembling. You just tore them apart." MacGregor wiped sweat from his brow. "They'll think twice before underestimating the P-39 again." For a brief moment, the sky fell silent. The surviving Zeros had retreated, climbing to regroup, leaving the bombers unharmed. The adrenaline in MacGregor's veins slowly ebbed, replaced by the sobering reality of what had just transpired. Around him, the remains of enemy planes fell like fiery raindrops, and the acrid stench of smoke and fuel filled the air. The P-39, once dismissed as awkward and weak, had proven its worth. Its 37mm cannon had rewritten the rules of engagement in the Pacific sky. MacGregor allowed himself a slow, deep breath, feeling both exhaustion and triumph. He had survived impossible odds, his skill and the Airacobra's firepower turning the tide of this encounter. But even in victory, the cost of war hung heavy. Each enemy pilot lost was a life extinguished, and the jungle below was littered with evidence of destruction. MacGregor's mind wandered briefly to Mount. Family, letters, the fragile normalcy waiting for him somewhere far from this deadly theater. For now, though, survival demanded focus. The mission was not yet complete, and the air remained treacherous, filled with both opportunity and danger. July 15, 1942, late afternoon, returning toward the Allied airstrip. The sky had quieted. Smoke from destroyed Zeros drifted lazily across the horizon, mingling with clouds that were now tinged orange and pink from the setting sun. The adrenaline that had driven every twist, dive, and gun blast now ebbed, leaving a hollow, dizzying fatigue in its wake. MacGregor's hands ached from gripping the control stick. The roar of the Allison engine was now a dull hum, almost comforting after the relentless chaos. Beside him, Jimmy piloted his P-39 with a mix of awe and relief. We actually did it," he said, voice trembling. "No bombers lost. Every Zero down." MacGregor nodded silently, scanning the horizon. Each shredded enemy plane below was a stark reminder of the stakes they had faced. Victory tasted sweet, but bitterly so. The thought of those pilots falling through the jungle weighed heavily. War was rarely neat, and heroism always carried a price. Touching down on the rough, humid airstrip, the squadron was greeted by mechanics and ground crew, their faces a mixture of relief and disbelief. The P-39s had returned, battered but victorious. Wings dented, bullet holes in fuselage and canopy, scorched paint around the nose where the cannon's recoil had burned through primer. The aircraft bore the scars of combat like battle medals. MacGregor climbed from the cockpit, knees trembling slightly, his uniform damp with sweat and grime. The sun now cast long shadows across the airfield, the lush green of New Guinea a stark contrast to the destruction of the sky above. Ground. Crew rushed to inspect the aircraft, shaking their heads in amazement at the carnage the Airacobras had wrought. Lieutenant Colonel Harrison, squadron commander, approached, eyes wide. "MacGregor, Reynolds, outstanding work up there. That cannon of yours, it's a monster." MacGregor shrugged, still catching his breath. "Just did what had to be done, sir." But inside he felt a surge of pride. The P-39 had not only survived, it had dominated, proving the skeptics wrong. The 37mm cannon, derided as unwieldy, had been a one-shot executioner against the enemy. Later, in the quiet of the barracks, MacGregor wrote a letter home. He didn't dwell on the carnage, the spinning Zeros, or the roaring cannons. He wrote simply, "The P-39, it's more than they said. More than I ever imagined. We survived, and maybe we made a difference today." As evening fell over the island, the war continued, endless and indifferent, yet for a few pilots in the sky above New Guinea, a legend had been born. The Airacobra, once mocked, had become a weapon to be feared, a testament to the deadly marriage of human skill and mechanical power. The Japanese pilots, who had laughed at the squat mid-engine fighter, would never forget the day the P-39 tore wings clean off in the Pacific sun. And for Bob MacGregor and his comrades, the lesson was clear. Underestimation could be fatal. Precision and courage could be immortal. Months later, in the rear echelons of the Allied base, the story of the Airacobra's devastating 37mm cannon had spread among pilots and ground crews alike. Reports circulated of Lieutenant MacGregor's engagement. 3 Zeros destroyed in a single sortie, bombers protected, and not a single P-39 lost. In hushed tones, even veteran pilots admitted they had misjudged the fighter. For MacGregor, the combat was still fresh in his mind. Nights were the hardest. The whine of engines in dreams, tracer fire streaking past, and the acrid smell of burning aircraft haunted him. Yet pride mingled with those memories. He had flown a plane others mocked and survived, not through luck alone, but by mastering its quirks, anticipating the enemy, and trusting the deadly 37mm cannon. The Airacobra itself became a symbol. In the Pacific, it was no longer the awkward underdog, it was the wing cracker, a fighter that could punish a Zero before the enemy even realized it was under attack. The Soviets on the Eastern Front had seen similar results. The nose-mounted cannon had shredded German aircraft with terrifying efficiency. But here, in the tropical theater, the P-39 earned a new legend. At squadron briefings, instructors now highlighted the Airacobra's strengths. Pilots were trained to exploit its firepower, its sturdy fuselage, and mid-engine design, which, in skilled hands, allowed for unexpected maneuvers. MacGregor and his squadron mates demonstrated tactics, showing how one well-placed 37mm round could decide the outcome of a fight instantly. Years later, long after the war, MacGregor reflected on that day above New Guinea. He never forgot the smell of burning aluminum, the echo of cannon fire, or the sight of Zeros spinning helplessly toward the jungle below. The Airacobra, once laughed at, had become a testament to innovation and courage. Its story was one of defying expectation, of proving that even the underestimated could leave an indelible mark on history. In museums and archives, photographs of the P-39 appeared, its sleek, stubby frame hiding the lethal weapon within. Pilots who flew it remembered the fear it inspired in the enemy, the deadly respect earned through firepower and skill. And in Bob MacGregor's mind, the image remained vivid. The first Zero he had destroyed, wings tearing apart, smoke trailing in the morning sun. A moment frozen forever in the sky, proof that bravery and precision could turn doubt into triumph. The Airacobra's legend endured not because it was the fastest or most elegant fighter, but because it was deadly in the hands of a determined pilot. And for those who had witnessed it firsthand, there was no laughter left. Only respect, fear, and the sobering knowledge that war could elevate the unexpected to greatness.